Do you hear that clock ticking? You now have a month to file your taxes. Tax day 2024 is Monday, April 15th. So on this March the 15th, 2 Wants to Know is helping you by giving you a one-on-one with tax experts. Are you ready? This is what you do. You text us the questions that you have for those experts. The number's on your screen, 336-379-5775. Your questions are anonymous and you get your answers in real time. So joining us today are tax experts Kevin Robinson with Robinson Accounting and Tax Services, as well as Mark Stieber with Jackson Hewitt Tax Prep Services. All right, first and foremost, let's talk about sports betting. Mark, this whole thing with online sports gambling, we're only like a week in, and when people hear that they actually have to account for their winnings, how does that work?
Well, the first thing, it's not a new rule. You've always had to pay taxes and report your winnings, big, small, formal, informal, March Madness in the office, big lottery you see on TV, but it's always been taxable. Several states have now officiated that, created online platforms. And so all I would simply say is, if you've had winnings, you're supposed to report it. If you've had losses, you are in some limited ways allowed to offset those if you itemize and if you've kept detailed records. That being said, if you have a nice win, don't just net your losses and figure that's taxable. That's one, not the correct way to do it. And two, that can lead to other problems. So if you had winnings, especially if you've had material winnings, especially if you win the office pool in March Madness, be sure you get some competent help and don't listen to that guy watching TikTok saying, hey, this isn't reportable, don't worry about it, because the jealous coworker who didn't win might turn you in.
I can't even believe that the office pool is part of it. It's winnings no matter what. Now, there are certain thresholds, though, that like the casino or the bingo place or whatever, they will send you a W-2G, right?
Oh, that is correct. And that's where the myth gets started. People think, well, if I didn't get a document, it's not taxable. Or if it's not an official casino, I don't have to report it. That's not the rule. The rule is if you win $1, even with a coin flip with your buddy, that's technically taxable income or reportable income. Now, once you get past 600, you get the W-2G. If you get more than 5,000, they're going to start withholding about 24%. But in any case, it's taxable. That's the first part. You win more, then it's going to be reportable both to the IRS and to yourself. So there's a greater risk that you'll get caught. But as I say, a lot of people get turned over by the whistleblowers when they're jealous of your winnings at the nightly poker game or what have you. Not always a big problem, but certainly a risk to be contended with. It is taxable no matter what the TikTok guy might tell you.
Okay, it is taxable, even the nightly poker game. All right, Kevin, this is also a very common question. A lot of people are working remotely. Their jobs have allowed them to work from home. And so their question is, I work from home. Can I write off my internet and other things?
Well, Tanya, sometimes the safest answer in tax questions, it depends. If they are W-2 employees, basically, then that went away as unreimbursed business expense. However, if they're freelancing and they are contract labor or they're on their own and they're 1099 worker, then yes, they can take a portion of their mortgage interest, property tax, insurance. So basically take the square footage of their office and divide it by the total square foot of the house to get a percentage of what they may be able to write off. So, and it can be very generous too.
Okay, but if you get a W-2, as in like you get a W-2 from your employer, you cannot write off any of that stuff.
No, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act kind of took care of that, unfortunately.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about married filing jointly, married filing separately. There are some pros and cons to both. So, Mark, how do we figure out what we should do?
Yeah, that's a great rule. It's been around. It's not widely used. Only about 3 million people file married filing separate. And so I say that because where it's applicable, it can be very helpful. There may be some tax savings if you have very large swings in income or deductions in the spousal couple. But where I really see it come into effect is if you want to protect yourself against the joint and severable tax liability. When you file a joint return, not only are you responsible for your taxes, you're responsible for your spouse's taxes. And if you're starting to slip into that unhappy territory of you might not be married next year, you want to maybe consider it, because if you get divorced, when you file that married file joint return, you're responsible, even if your deadbeat spouse doesn't pay. So married filing separate does have some tax benefits, and that's a separate set of facts. But if you really want to keep your taxes separate and separately liable for yourself and not attach yourself to your spouse, that's when it makes a lot more sense and it's a lot more common. But if you have huge deductions and your spouse has high income, you can lose out on some of those deductions, itemized deductions, medical deductions, it doesn't matter which. Now, if you file separate, you may get those. And so it just kind of depends, as Kevin said, on your situation. So you really have to have some unique situational facts. But If you're not happily married or going to be happily married, then you really ought to see your tax pro and find out if it makes sense for you.
Gotcha. Okay. We got into some waters there that I didn't even know that we were going to be talking about today. Okay. Kevin, let's talk about this. A lot of folks say, my parents are living with us. Is this a situation where we can claim our parents as dependents?
And it's a very common situation, Tanya, with a lot of folks having elderly parents living with them, and their elderly parent may only have Social Security income or limited income to start with. So it's very possible they could claim them as dependents if they live with them over half a year and they provide over half support. And if they're only getting Social Security income, the parents probably won't have to file at all. So it is very possible. And with that, there's other dependent credit of $500 per qualifying parent that they may be able to get on the return as well.
Okay, this is good to know. All right, one last thing. There are two different ways that you can file taxes. You can file them by hand, you can mail those in, you can e-file them online. Neither way is wrong or right, Mark, but there is one that is a whole lot easier and faster.
Well, it's not only easier and faster, it's safer, it's the common way to do it. If you electronically file, you immediately send your stuff to the IRS. They have some checks on your computer, on their computer. They can catch some mistakes up front. It's secure, not sitting in your mailbox. It's certainly faster than 6 or 8 weeks in the mail. And then also, you protect yourself from other data theft risks. It's just the smarter way to go. Plus, you don't make that little Swedish girl all mad by tearing up trees by filing paper. So it's the smarter way to go.
All right. All right. What we're going to do is we are going to take a quick break from this. We've got some questions from you. Make sure you send in your questions by text. We'll be back in just a few minutes.